Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. My name is Marvin Lanes.
And I'm Summers McKay.
We are a part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, except yesterday, which we'll explain later. But 7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, and home office-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 29th of September, 2020. Well, guys, yesterday we had a chaotic morning, and some of you may have noticed there was no Optimist Daily update. But there was an Optimist Daily, and there were fantastic solutions. So if you are not subscribed to the Optimist Daily newsletter and instead rely on Kristy and I and Amelia and today's special guest, Marvin, for your headlines, we are sorry that we weren't there for you yesterday. But we are back. And as many of you know, Kristy is in her oasis of human contact on her ranch with all of her family and family friends. And Amelia is taking some time to get some stuff knocked out this morning. So I have a very, very special co-host. It's Marvin Lanes. Marvin, who are you? Why are you here today?
Well, I'm happy to hop in. Who am I? Well, I have been an Optimist writer, reader, and editor for 5 years now. I started off writing in California, now from my home base here in Amsterdam. And you might remember me from a certain Optimist View story in which I was stuck in Costa Rica during COVID.
Yes. As you guys know, we have talked a lot about our phenomenal international team, and Marvin was marooned in Costa Rica during the first lockdown. Just refresh everybody's memory. How did that all happen?
Yeah, some extremely interesting timing. After a long, previous year, lots of different projects and running The Optimist, I was definitely desiring a break. However, I left at the end of February. And so if you can recall your dates, that's basically right as everything started to go the wrong way. And at that time, being in Costa Rica and seeing everyone kind of panic and trying to go home, I remember reading the health advice, which was essentially don't travel if you can avoid it. And I kind of looked around my surroundings. I looked around what was going on in the Netherlands, which was, still in winter mode, people being locked indoors. I fortunately had my computer with me, so I decided, well, if I don't have to travel, I might as well stay here. And fortunately, The Optimist was helpful in allowing me to work from there. And yeah, it turned out to be quite a beautiful experience. Being in a cold country for the previous 6 months, I was absolutely bathing in that precious sunlight and all the nature in Costa Rica. So I ended up being there 5 months. Quite a long time. Definitely missing friends and family after a while, missing a bit of normality, although I think that we all are in a sense. But yeah, what a precious experience, one that I'll never forget. One where I ended up learning quite a bit about myself, making new friends, having the chance to, I guess fix is not the word, but work on my own physical and mental health. And it was just a reminder that sometimes you need to get away, and I guess a little longer than expected, but it was a precious experience.
Well, to paint a picture for everybody, the Optimist Daily is a global team, right? People work from all over the world. We have a team member right now who's thinking about going to teach English in Spain and continuing to work for the Optimist Daily. She's based here in California. We are very, very flexible in allowing people to work all over the world because really, the world is full of solutions, and the more perspectives we can get globally, the better. Specifically, Marvin liked to taunt us all as we were in the heart of COVID winter by showing up to team meetings in a hammock. in a rocking chair with toucans behind him, always tan. There was a smidge of envy on all of our parts. But then as it went on and on, at first it seemed very quaint and, we were all kind of jealous of you. But then as it went on and flights kept getting canceled and your journey just kept getting extended, we all started to shift our focus from envy of your, Copacabana tan to, oh my gosh, can you imagine if you couldn't get back? And so you got back and you've spent the last few months working. What's it been like in Europe this summer?
Yeah, well, that's kind of fascinating because when I left Costa Rica, it seemed to just be really getting started there. Their precautions made sure that we were in lockdown there, but as far as COVID, it wasn't exactly happening just yet. And when I arrived to Holland, it was just coming out of lockdown. In fact, it was just, I think, 4 days after I came that the restaurants started opening up again. The same precautions were in place. We're wearing face masks on public transportation. You're suggested to wear one in grocery stores, which I was seeing quite a bit of. It wasn't life as I knew it, but it wasn't life in such a absurd, change, profound manner. So the summer was quite a beautiful Dutch summer, especially with the weather being, a bit more friendly than it typically is. And I guess we might have to blame climate change on that one. But that is unfortunately starting to change as the summer has waned down. And I'm sure a lot of you guys could see the rates going up here, and we're basically entering a new lockdown. So the summer was also quite beautiful here, but I think a little too beautiful. I think people might have become a little bit lackadaisical about the regulations, and that might explain why we're seeing such a quick, rapid uptick in cases here.
In the United States, we've had lockdown, but we've had various degrees of commitment to lockdown. We've had various degrees of concern about the virus. Certainly everybody at the Optimist Daily team, we've all worked remotely. As you guys know, we've all been stuck at home and figuring out a new cadence of life. And it's interesting to think about if I were to imagine what a more rigorous lockdown would feel like for where we're at. In my family, aside from occasionally visiting with some friends on the weekends for socially distant lawn parties, as we call them. And I recently took Brennan to a big swimming pool where we had lots of space, and we are now doing regular swims with the baby. Those are sort of the only two things that we do. But I know a lot of people in the country are going to restaurants and are having more social interactions. And so it'll just be really interesting to see what this next chapter looks like in the United States, as well as how the pandemic kind of rolls out globally. One of the most important things we can do here in the United States, and actually I think globally right now, is to go get flu shots. And the reason being is that the flu season is going to be that much more aggressive in that we have all been quarantined, or many of us have. It's going to be a really dangerous flu season, and the compounding of the flu season plus COVID could once again overwhelm our healthcare systems. I saw yesterday that France had indicated their healthcare system was sort of prepped to be overwhelmed with this second wave. So while it doesn't seem very optimistic that you're entering a new lockdown, Marvin, is there anything that you can dig in there with optimism to share for our users, knowing that you guys are a few months ahead of where we will be? Is perhaps there anything on the Optimist Daily that might have lent itself to thinking about this?
Well, I tried to find an opportunity in anything. As we're entering a new lockdown, at least in this case, I'm in my home. I'm not so far from my family and from my friends. But for me, especially just having moved into a new place, I see the opportunity to kind of recenter myself in my own location, have a new opportunity to really focus with my own resources around me, whether it's books or writing or whatever. I guess having a chance to immerse myself in whatever activities. When it comes to like optimism or things that make me more optimistic, it would definitely be things like music. Making music always gives that extra boost. And I think what it really makes me happy to be back is that I'll be able to be there, even at a distance, for friends who might not have had it as easy or as well. Costa Rica is quite an enjoyable place to be.
As adventurous.
It's adventurous, yes. So just being able to be a support in a different kind of way than I was able to be when I was there. As for the Optimist Daily, we have a really good solution that can bring, I guess, a bit of positivity to people who might be looking at another lockdown. So we always like to talk about pets, and I think people love to brag about their pets.
Obviously, because Tucker and Cleo and Copper and Clover are everyone who listens to the Optimist Daily Updates favorite podcast animals.
Pet owners experience lower levels of stress during lockdowns. So this comes from research out of the University of York. And I mean, you might know, like, yeah, you get a boost from having that bond with an animal, but it's really nice to see a study confirm this, especially a study with a quality sample pool of almost 6,000 people in the UK. I'll read you a little bit from that story. From boosting morale to reducing levels of stress, sharing a home with an animal friend can go a long way to improving your overall mental health, especially during times of a lockdown. At least that's what a recent survey from the University of York has found after researching the relationship between pet ownership and psychological well-being during COVID-19 lockdowns. The results showed that owning a pet was associated with an improved state of mental health and decreased levels of loneliness, no matter the animal's species.
That species part is interesting, right?
Right. Because at least initially, because there have been studies done before on this, there was the idea that if you had a horse or a dog or cat, you might score slightly higher or lower on this. But this particular study said there was no statistical difference in the emotional bond with your pets. So if you have a guinea pig or you have a dog like Cleo, it's more about the actual bond that you create with that animal rather than that particular animal having specific qualities that it gives you.
So basically, like, we'll go a little Finding Nemo here, but fish are friends, not food. And you could have a pet fish. So if you can't go adopt a dog or, get a larger animal or a mammal of any kind, even a fish or a turtle or an aquarium animal could be really beneficial to your health.
Absolutely. And I think from personal experience as well, there's something about waking up to another creature or caring for someone that gives you a little kick in the day. You need that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as everyone knows, I basically live on, my house, which is like a commune/farm, right? 5 people and 3 animals and so much activity. There is very little time to actually get low because I've got a lot of creatures that need caring for, and it makes a really big difference. And certainly this report, among others, just reiterates that. And so this, among other self-care tools, there's lots of them. Marvin's favorite is journaling. Okay, I make that joke because he always teases us when we have a journaling article. But hey, houseplants, fish, pets. Guys, we will get through whatever this next chapter is. And there is optimism ahead. And there are other solutions in this world that we should be looking at too.
I do joke about journaling only because it's one of the classic suggestions that you'll get, but I too journal and rely on it a lot.
It's funny because I realized that my daughter, she's very mechanical and she loves playing with toys and taking things apart, and she rearranges furniture and she loves sweeping and dusting and she cleans up her little room areas all the time because these are the things she sees me doing. And then I handed her a big crayon and a piece of paper and she looked at me like, what am I supposed to do with this? And she just started to eat the crayon. And I realized that this was actually messaging from the world to me to say, pick up your pen and start journaling, Summers, and do it in front of the baby because she doesn't even know what paper and pens are. And so every morning now as we sit down and I feed her breakfast, I have a law of attraction calendar / journal that I use. And I sit down in front of her and I write in it and I talk to her about what I'm writing because I realized that she knows how to work a phone. She knows how to work the remote, but she had no concept of pen and paper because we just don't ever do it. So as much as we tease about journaling, it's actually a skill set that, it has centered me even just this past week getting back into. Something else, we'll jump to another headline on the Optimist Daily today. Last week, we were talking about how to change our economic structure from a fossil fuel-based economic structure. And we talked a bit about China's promise to go carbon neutral by 2060 and the ban on gas-powered vehicles in California for 2035 and all of the different steps that need to get taken. I had an interesting conversation over the weekend with, a family stakeholder of mine who said, well, what is the future of power? What are the other methods with which we are going to get power? If we're going to stop burning coal and we're not going to use fossil fuels, where is power coming from? Well, part of this is that there is a general architecture. And what I liked about the China article was that it actually showed that this is not flipping a switch, that changing our economic structure, changing our infrastructure simply can't be forced in an immediate way. There has to be measured steps to change everything, whether it is construction to powering vehicles, to powering homes, to even just how we get around. The headline that I am picking today is Tel Aviv aims to become the first city with roads that charge electric vehicles. Now, Tel Aviv is on its way to becoming home to the first electric road in the world that would enable electric vehicles to charge while on the go. This is the first of its kind pilot. It's going to be carried out on these Tel Aviv roads from Tel Aviv University Railway to Klatskin Terminal at Ramat Aviv, a route of about 1.2 miles. And what I love about this pilot program is that it recognizes that we have to start somewhere. And if it's just 1.2 miles of road, let's give it a go. What I found missing from this solution, and I dug a little deeper into our different sources, was what is Tel Aviv doing to power that road that then powers those vehicles? Again, solutions are not siloed. We talk about that 1,000 times a week on the Optimist Daily. But I love this solution, and I'd love to know more about, certainly we look in the United States, we see a lot of what's happening here to begin to dismantle and rebuild a better fueled economy. What are you seeing where you are?
Well, certainly a valid question, which you just brought up, is how are they actually going to power this? And I'm actually curious for that answer as well. But for security,
I think some writers we could tell to go research that.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure we can actually find a good answer to that. But as for the Netherlands, well, you bring up the Netherlands, Summer, but unfortunately, there's quite a little frustration on this side of the pond regarding our clean energy and climate targets. I think the Netherlands has this representation in the media to the wider world as a country that's biking and has windmills, that we are such a clean country. And certainly there are things that we do that are really good, but there's a lot of frustration. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we opened, I believe, 5 coal plants in this tiny country. So that's one thing where you really can get frustrated with. There are a lot of offshore wind projects going on in the North Sea that are coming to power now, so that will certainly help us. And there are already talks about closing the specific coal plants that I was just talking about. So it's not like it's all bad, but it's also not all sunny like so many people tend to think. There was a story that we published, and I don't believe was in the podcast, that came from Sweden. And what was particularly interesting about this was in a city called Ludvika, where they were trying to create, well, we like to talk about the microgrid quite often in Sweden. And here they were combining solar and geothermal sources and one other source, and creating a shared network of batteries amongst a group of homes in this town. And this was allowing them to not only use renewable energy consistently, but they were also amongst themselves producing and consuming their own energy, so not having to extract from other sources, and was allowing them to lower their bills. So this was what they were calling prosumer housing. And that when I read this, as we're starting to create new neighborhoods, you see it in Holland, you see it in America as well. A lot of our older infrastructure homes from more of the Reconstruction period, the 50s and 60s, homes that were being built, or neighborhoods that were being quite quickly, as we have to now rebuild and create better designs. I think that this prosumer model is absolutely what we need to be doing, also so that we're not relying on a national grid that isn't always trustworthy.
Right. Well, and we talk about microgrids all the time on the Optimist Daily, and we also talk about diversifying the basket, right? So not just assuming that one solution or one source of energy will be the answer. So it is about a portfolio. I love the idea of putting the power into the hands of the prosumer instead of the consumer. And I think that's fantastic. Okay, well, we have dozens of great stories over the last 3 days that we could talk about from the Optimist Daily, but we can't. We have to get to work. I have a meeting with the tech team. Marvin has to go, find more solutions and change the world. But I'm going to read off just a few headlines from today's Optimist Daily that you guys can check out. From the election section, meet the astronaut voting from space this November. Experts give 7 life strategies to boost energy and focus. Obviously, napping is in there. This quiet garbage truck in Berlin runs on electricity. And a sweet story about Romeo and Juliet couple's pandemic love story starts from their balconies. Marvin, what else do we have on here?
Well, we have a really great story, at least personally, from out of Australia. Vincent Namarja becomes first Indigenous winner of Australia's Archibald Prize. If you're not familiar with Vincent, you might be familiar with his great-grandfather, Albert, who is probably the most famous Aboriginal artist in Australia, became a household name and always struggled with this identity problem because being someone who's Aboriginal but also accepted by the Australian more colonial public was a controversial figure. And now we see his great-grandson taking the most honored prize for portraiture. I would definitely recommend taking a look at that story.
Yeah, the images are stunning. That is really, really beautiful.
There was a really good one. The headline is "Ordering to Go Creates a Lot of Waste. Dispatch Goods has a solution." Dispatch Goods is a new startup, and I think we all ask this question, like, when you're ordering food to go, you get just so much waste. Why don't they have a reusable container system? It would seem so obvious, and yet we never really see it. And here this startup is actually making that happen.
We order takeout all the time, and we have a farm box that we get delivered every couple weeks, and I was getting very frustrated because the farm box comes in this highly structured, really solid cardboard box that there is zero reason couldn't be reusable. So I messaged our farm box company and I said, when I order a new one, would you pick the old one up and use it again? And they're interested in doing it. There's some concerns with food safety and whatnot about reusing it, but this has to be a solution, because if we're going to keep being in lockdown and we're going to keep ordering takeout and we're going to keep ordering delivery, I don't know. It's a lot of waste. This needs to be solved, and there's a business opportunity for it.
Right. I mean, if you're always ordering to go and somebody's constantly coming by your door, then there can be someone who's constantly taking it away from your door. Exactly. Just like you said. I agree. And then we had 2 more technical stories. One regarding an imaging technique that could lead to a potential tool for diagnosing Parkinson's. This comes out of the University of Pennsylvania. Definitely one with quite a bit of scientific jargon. And then another story out of Australia regarding a new cement-free sewage concrete that could prevent fatbergs and corrosion. Not the most pretty and, appetizing story to be reading, but fatbergs, sewage that we have underground can definitely lead to some big issues.
Yeah. Well, everybody, that is just a taste of taste is like a terrible thing to say. But nonetheless, that's just a smidge of what you can get on the Optimist Daily today. Thank you all for listening to the Optimist Daily Update with our special guest, Marvin Lanes. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. We promise to cover the current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offer you the information needed most to chart new paths for all of us.
Please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com, and for just $5 a month, support reader-funded independent journalism. Be part of the solution, changing consciousness and addressing our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Let's keep the Optimist Daily free for all those need it, but supported by those who can. Thank you, Summers, for having me, and it's been a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Marvin, thank you for being here. I am so grateful, and hopefully you won't be a stranger, and we'll hear from you again.
Absolutely. All right. Goodbye, everyone.